I see people online getting frustrated because all of the Dr. Joe Dispenza reviews for retreats are really, really positive, and we don't know quite why that is. Well, I know why that is because I made a really, really positive review, and right after I did, I felt ready to make the opposite kind of review. I have a diagnosis of autism and ADHD, and I find that my nervous system is extremely sensory driven. And what that really means is I need to experience something to decide whether or not I want more of it. In this case, I impulsively pulled the trigger on a Dr. Joe Dispenza retreat. I did enjoy the hell out of my time there. And then I left and I was done, totally over it and ready to move on with my life. In that first review I was making, I had cut out things that sounded like they could be negative because humans have this thing we struggle with called cognitive dissonance. And it's really difficult for us to hold two conflicting ideas in our head at the same time, and especially to talk about those conflicting ideas in our head to another person on the internet at the same time, because we are very heavily socialized that we want to convey one image that is very clear to the audience. Nobody wants to look like the person who's complaining, especially if you're in a Dr. Joe Dispenza retreat or any of those toxic positivity things. It creates this collective idea within the audience that nobody wants to be the one who starts talking about all the awkward elephants in the room. So sometimes we just don't. After you've attended a Dr. Joe Dispenza retreat, most people are riding a really great high. So when they're recording their review, they're recording it from that state of mind and state of body. And that is exactly what a lot of us are going there for. I wanted to know, what would it be like to meditate with 8,000 other people at the same time? I just had to stop wondering and actually know what it was like. The group of friends that I made weren't total diehards about all of the crazy stuff that Dr. Joe talks about. In fact, at the end of the day, we made a lot of fun about Dr. Joe Dispenza and change, and how everything is mystical. Everything is totally made up. When we're attending these retreats, we've paid for an experience. We've paid for an elaborate magic show, and that's what we're getting. That's why there's such intense music and lighting, and sometimes it's kind of like a rock concert. In fact, the situation of going to a Dr. Joe Dispenza retreat reminds me quite a lot about a book my ex and I read regarding a physicist or a quantum physicist. I can't remember the name of it. One of the stories he shared in the book was agreeing to speak for someone only to realize 3 days beforehand that it was a retreat for someone who claimed to be the reincarnation of an ancient soldier and had all these people following him. And this scientist went up on stage and told everybody that it was all meaningless and it was just completely made up stories, because that is what reality is. And to his surprise, everybody cheered him on afterwards at his book signing. People came up and were very clear that just because they were attending this event didn't mean that they bought into this guy's story that he was a reincarnation of an ancient soldier and like all of the details. They just understood that there's something ineffable about life that people want to connect about. And it's very difficult to find communities where you can make those connections. So it generally happens that at the head of these communities is somebody who's kind of wacko. I was quite aware while I was attending the retreat that Joe Dispenza shares all these crazy stories about people who have, healed themselves without any evidence about it. Or he has stories about how he's talked with quantum physicists about this topic or that topic, and they totally agree with him. Yet he doesn't happen to have a podcast or a YouTube channel where he openly, publicly talks or interviews with any of these quantum physicists. And I'm aware that these things don't add up, but we let these things fall by the wayside because really, when you're attending the retreat, you're attending an experience. I did have an expanded sense of awareness because there is actually some core nugget of science that is truth when we talk about bioelectric fields and coherence and nervous system regulation. It just unfortunately all sounds like it's pseudoscience because one, most people don't understand it, because it didn't make sense to me until I came across the tome of a book called We Are Electric, which is extremely boring to read, which is how you know it's good science. And while it sounds fishy because it's a new topic you don't know about, you come across people like Joe Dispenza, and they are totally warping the concept of the bioelectric field and coherence to suit their own kind of wacko means. And it takes the real science and mixes it up with the pseudoscience and reduces the credibility of bioelectric fields and coherence. And that makes me sad. It was a really special state of being when I was at that retreat because we were all so relaxed that we could laugh at everything. Something that might normally bother us was just the most hilarious thing ever. And it really felt nice to experience life like that, especially as someone who has nervous system dysregulation issues because I have autism and ADHD. It felt like I was a normal, fully functioning human being for a small period of time. I didn't have any problem socializing or making eye contact. I didn't question myself before I spoke. Would I pay to go to another retreat though? No, I actually wouldn't. I was clear one evening while I was laughing with all the girls I made friends with that what I really loved the most was the social connections that I made and that feeling of safety and the feeling of trying new things with other people. And rather than going to a giant event that costs a lot of money, I would really love if I had a small group of people where we could do a mixture of meditation and breath work and local experiences and trying things that scare us, because that was really what mattered the most to me at the retreat. That is the truth about the retreat. It is an over-the-top theater experience that you are paying to attend. We're all looking for answers, and a grain of salt comes with a pound of bullshit.